It's the kind of crime detectives fear. That's how police are describing the rape and beating of an elderly woman. The man APD says is behind all of it was supposed to turn himself in yesterday, but that didn't happen. Now police are desperately trying to get him off the streets. Here's News 13's Cole Miller.
This is the type of call that officers never want to encounter, the brutality that they encountered that day. It's the type of call that detectives will remember for the rest of their lives. When we found the victim, she was barely alive. Right now, this guy is public enemy number one.
Albuquerque police say the man thereafter is 56-year-old Ernest Casillas, seen here.
This 75-year-old lady was sexually abused, violently attacked in her own home.
Officer Simon Drobick says that woman was found at her apartment near Academy and McKinney early in March. A co-worker called police saying she hadn't seen her show up. Drobick says she had been raped and then violently beaten. The criminal complaint is graphic, outlining the details.
Hit her so hard with a hammer in the head that actually knocked her dentures out of her mouth.
Drobick says Casillas and the woman may have been working to start a business, and she had paid Casillas around $25,000. When Casillas was brought in for questioning, he refused to give a DNA sample. Detectives finally got that sample nearly 3 weeks later with a warrant.
He cannot be eliminated by the DNA that we found.
And after that woman woke up from a weeks-long coma, police say she pointed to Casillas in a photo lineup, saying, quote, "He's an evil, hateful man," as she fought back tears.
Right away, her demeanor changed when she pointed at Mr. Casillas as the offender.
Casillas was supposed to turn himself in. He was a no-show.
The horrificness of this crime, the way he left her for dead, the way he violated her, we want this guy off the streets.
Cole Miller, KRQE, News 13.
Police say Casillas, who's married, is looking at more charges now that he skipped out on turning himself in. The victim is still recovering at a hospital. Albuquerque police say a man shot and killed a robber in his home on Girard and near Lead. This is an update to the story we brought to you while it was developing yesterday. Police say just before midnight on Friday, 2 roommates answered their front door after 3 men knocked on it. The men walked in and robbed the roommates at gunpoint. Police say one of the robbers shot one of the roommates. That's when the other one shot back, hitting and killing one of the robbers, 36-year-old Carlos Menchaca. Police say the other 2 robbers took off. One of them is described as Hispanic, in his 20s, about 5'9" and 170 pounds. The injured roommate is in critical condition at the hospital. We're learning more about the moments before a small plane crashed yet east of Moriarty. Torrance County deputies tell us the pilot had just taken off from the Moriarty airport. Sheriff Heath White says it happened about just before 4 in the afternoon. Neighbors call the 911 after seeing the plane go down. The pilot was the only one in the plane and suffered minor injuries. He was taken to UNM Hospital. Investigators believe strong wind or mechanical problems may have been factors, but are still looking into the cause. A New York police officer is in the hospital this morning after detectives say he was shot in the head. Police say the 25-year-old Brian Moore and his partner were driving in an unmarked unit yesterday when they saw a man acting suspicious, adjusting something in his waistband. The officers pulled up behind the man, 35-year-old Demetrius Blackwell, to ask him about it. That's when police say Blackwell pulled out a gun from his waistband and opened fire on both officers. Officer Moore was shot in the head. His partner rushed him to the hospital, where he is now in critical condition. Blackwell was arrested by other officers after a standoff at a nearby home. Well, dash cam video captured a dramatic chase in Colorado, where an officer is seen jumping on a suspect's car and hanging on as the driver speeds off.
322, hey, fine. Step it up, step it up. Step out of the car! Step out of the car! 322! 322, he has Millers. 322. Driver just took off with 312 in the vehicle.
It all started as a traffic stop for an expired license plate. Police say they soon discovered one of the passengers in the car had several warrants out for his arrest. While arresting the driver, the wanted passenger jumped in the driver's seat and sped off with one of the officers hanging on. The officer held on for a quarter of a mile with the suspect trying to pry her off. The car eventually came to a stop after the driver drove it off the road. The officer that hung onto the car suffered some minor injuries, but is okay and is back on duty. The suspect was arrested. Well, police are investigating a horrific case out of Missouri where a woman claims her boyfriend kept her locked in a box like an animal. The woman says James Horn Jr. kept her captive in his home and sometimes locked her in a wooden box. She managed to escape somehow this week, and police say she's safe. Now, meanwhile, Horn remains on the run. Horn's family is aware of what happened but are defending him, saying he's changed his ways.
It was wrong because he is, well, you ain't gonna believe this, but he is a religious person, and he knew what he was doing far as living or having sex, was wrong.
Police say Horn dumped his truck south of Sedalia, Missouri. His family says they hope he turns himself in. An art piece on display at the Madison Central Library in Wisconsin is causing some controversy. The piece is entitled "Don't Shoot" by artist Mike Leroy. It depicts a young African-American child pointing what looks like a water gun at three officers who are wearing riot gear and pointing guns back at the child. The library's director says the decision to include the painting in a local artist's showcase wasn't taken lightly.
The purpose was to establish a conversation with the community. We thought the public library was an appropriate vehicle or platform.
The artist's explanation of the piece is posted next to the canvas. The library has also agreed to let the Wisconsin Professional Police Association post its own statement near the painting as well. Well, expect some following developing news this morning. Bernalillo County deputies are investigating a shooting near Tapia and Arenal. They were called to the area near Rio Grande High School around 3 this morning for a domestic violence situation. Deputies say when they tried to arrest one of the people involved, some type of fight broke out and shots were fired. One man was hit. He is now at UNM Hospital. His condition is unknown at this time. We'll continue to bring you updates as the information becomes available. Well, we're working to find out more about the events surrounding a deadly crash at Broadway near Desert. Late last night, Albuquerque police say a car hit and killed a pedestrian. Broadway was closed in both directions. It is now reopened. Like always, we will continue to update this story on air and online as we learn more. Well, brutal, horrific, the kind of crime detectives fear. That's how police are describing the rape and beating of an elderly woman. The crime has kept investigators busy for months, and now they know who they're after.
This is the type of call that officers never want to encounter, the brutality that they encountered that day. It's the type of call that detectives will remember for the rest of their lives. When we found the victim, she was barely alive. Right now, this guy is public enemy number 1.
APD says they're looking for 56-year-old Ernest Casillas. Police say he raped and beat a 75-year-old woman to near death in March at her apartment near Academy and McKinney. Police believe the two were working together to start a business and that the woman paid Casillas nearly $25,000. And when Casillas was brought in for questioning, he was asked for a DNA sample but refused. It wasn't until police had a warrant 3 weeks later that they got the sample. The woman pointed to Casillas in a photo lineup. Now, Casillas was supposed to turn himself in Saturday afternoon, but that didn't happen. Now, if someone is keeping Casillas or hiding him, police say they could be looking at felony charges. The woman is still recovering at a hospital. New Mexico State Police have canceled an Amber Alert from yesterday. They were looking for a 1-year-old from Roswell, believed to be badly hurt. He was found alive, but police aren't saying much more. We'll continue to update this story as soon as the information becomes available. Well, police say one Albuquerque thief seems to have a taste for Target. According to a criminal complaint, William Ainsworth stole more than $9,000 worth of fragrances, Beats by Dre gear, cameras, and smartwatches from the retail chain using a special key to get into the locked cabinets. Ainsworth is accused of stealing from all 5 Albuquerque Target locations in the span of 2 months. You might remember Ainsworth. 8 years ago, he stabbed and choked Roscoe the police dog while APD was chasing him. The dog survived and Ainsworth got prison time. Well, luck may be running out for a suspected burglar. A man beating breaking into an Albuquerque home looks awfully familiar. APD thinks it might be the same man who broke into other homes in the last few weeks. This break-in happened Thursday near Gibson and San Pedro. He comes from a purple or red Chrysler, peeks in the front window before going around back and crawling in through a window. He makes off with the keys to a truck. He looks like the guy who hit a home near Lomas and Morningside a few weeks ago and again at Lomas and Washington a few days later. Neighbors who live near where the latest one happened are upset.
We need to bring our neighborhood back to safety. We have families here, good working people, and it is not ending. And we need to know, how are we going to protect ourselves in our own homes?
Police think he was also involved in another burglary that same Thursday night. He dropped a cigarette. Now police are looking at it for DNA evidence. Well, it's been 1 week since a deadly earthquake rocked Nepal, killing more than 6,000 people. Rescue teams are still working around the clock, combing through debris, looking for any survivors. Crews from other countries have also joined in the search. The 7.8 magnitude quake claimed more than 6,000 lives and left more than 14,000 injured. Well, an Albuquerque man living in Nepal is now dedicating himself to help after the major earthquake there. News 13's Haley Rush spoke with that man's family.
They're homeless.
When a massive earthquake struck Nepal, Dale McLennan says it struck her heart.
We were blessed that the Manku area, no one was killed.
The remote village of Manku hits close to home because that's where her son is.
They help the mountain people in various ways.
Scott McLennan is founder of the nonprofit The Mountain Fund, based right here in Albuquerque. He and his team work to bring villages different care.
They have set up clinics. They have taken doctors and nurses and medical personnel on treks up into the mountains where areas some people never had ever seen medical help.
But after the recent disaster hit Nepal, Scott's mom says the more than 400 families he was helping were left with nothing.
The biggest problem is the road, and that has been badly damaged.
No roads means assistance is difficult, but Dale says that hasn't stopped her son from trying.
They put the large tents up, and then Scott got about 125 tarps, and they put up a tent city.
Their own tent city, housing hundreds of families while Scott's nonprofit searches for more permanent options.
He's always been for the underdog, and he's always been, if something needed help, he would be the one to be there.
And Scott's mother predicts he won't come home anytime soon.
If anybody was at the right place at the right time, as bad as it is, he's the one.
Haley Rush, KRQE News 13.
Scott's mother says she would love the city of Albuquerque to adopt the village of Manku. She believes if every large city in the U.S. adopts and sends resources to a Nepal village, they could get things back to normal more quickly. Well, a brand new app is making kids squirm and giving parents a sense of relief. Parent Blocked gives mom and dad full power to lock their kids' cell phones whenever they want. App creators Lisa Mullins and Jerry Bolin came up with the idea. Mullen says when her daughters would get in trouble, she'd take away their cell phones as punishment, but then she couldn't reach the pair when she needed to. One of the reasons she and Borland came up with the app.
A parent can go ahead and control every detail of their child's cell phone, and they can do it from an iPhone, from a tablet, from a PC.
The app also allows parents to shut a phone down anytime they want, or even give mom and dad complete control over who's allowed to call and at what time. Well, going anywhere this morning.